Welcome back to the Dallas Prospect. I wish I was here under happier circumstances, admittedly, but it is what it is. Let's talk about it. Let's commiserate. The 2024 season has come to a conclusion for the Mavericks. They fall in 5 games to the Boston Celtics. And it kind of became apparent with this series. I talked in my last video. It really did feel like there was a shot at game 2 and game 3 as well. There were opportunities, but whether it was the inexperience or just critical mistakes, guys simply not quite where they needed to be in order for Dallas to make that last push. They couldn't quite get there. So instead of being potentially up 3-1, which I don't think was crazy far away despite how this series felt at times, Dallas was down 3-1. And, despite all of Mavs Twitter assembling Avengers style with the same profile pictures of glasses and headphones Luka or Kyrie, or I saw Derek Lively, how somebody leaned into it all the way and did a Dwight Powell, which I said, yeah, that's a step too far. I'm going to have to report your image. That's too far. But it just wasn't quite enough for the Mavericks. And Boston closed the first quarter really strong, like a 9-0 run in the final minute or so of the first quarter. Took what was just a right there game, even though Luka and Kyrie hadn't been shooting the ball well, and pushed it out there a bit. Now, you got key plays from some of your role players. If you had told me that deep into the third quarter last night, Josh Green would be one of your leading scorers, at one point was your leading scorer, I don't think I would have believed you, because that is too much of a nightmare for me to fathom. But Josh Green off the bench had 14 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. Salute to Josh Green coming up big in the big moment. You had moments there with Derek Jones Jr. He had 10 on 4 of 8. He had a 3 as well. You could tell at times he was playing through a lot of pain. He only played 22 minutes. I think part of that is because, one, as Dallas fell behind big again with the way the second quarter closed, we'll get to that. That and him getting rolled up on later in the game, I think, just kind of limited it. He kept playing through it, but he just wasn't able to have the same athletic impact that he often does. So Dallas clawing in, hanging in there, staying within single digits. And again, Boston, at the end of that second quarter, just blitzes them out of nowhere. You get some turnovers that are uncharacteristic, untimely. And then you have a moment where Luka gets an and one with about 4 seconds left. He misses the free throw, and nobody contests Pritchard as he shoots from half court. I know there was some discussion about if he really traveled or whatever. The rule experts I've seen weighing in on it say they think the ref made the right call and that it wasn't. I don't care. It definitely didn't decide this game. But the consequence was Boston being up like 21 at the half, and it was just like, good grief. Being up on the half at a half-court buzzer beater, no less. I just didn't have a good feeling about it then. And so I found myself standing on the deck of the Titanic, looking around, realizing this is the end. Turning to my fellow musicians, because I'm going with this full analogy, and saying, gentlemen, it has been an honor playing with you tonight. That's how I was feeling, looking around at the rest of Mavs Twitter. I know I commented that meme in the community tab as well on the channel. That was really what I was feeling, was like, I'm going to hope against hope that they can gut it out one last time in the second half. But at that point, Luka and Kyrie were a combined 6 of 18 from the field for like 14 points. And it took a little bit of a flurry from Luka to get 9 points there at the very end before halftime. So Dallas just looked tired. They looked banged up and tired, and they weren't able to get the key plays and stops they needed. Boston, meanwhile, shot the lights out again. Boston, what did they shoot from 3? They shot 33% from 3, but for a while it was like 40%. They ended up being 13 of 39, but they were hitting their threes, and it was getting balanced. Drew Holiday was gashing Dallas early on. Al Horford hit some big threes when the time came, the opportunity came. Derek White, despite getting a tooth chipped and broken, another one knocked loose, in an inadvertent contact with Derek Lively diving for a loose ball. He still came in, was hitting threes. Like, these guys were just huge. Derek White had 14 points, 4 of 8 from 3. Tatum almost had a triple-double, 31, 8, and 11. My God, the way that ESPN was creaming their pants every time he got an assist. They were like, oh, 9 assists in the first half. Like, yeah, he's having a good game. Like, why is that blowing you away? Why is that, like, you can't believe what's happening? Like, he's playmaking for his shooters that are knocking down threes. Getting those assists isn't going to be as difficult when your guys are hitting their shots. And, then he eventually was able to pick his spots and get some points. He ended up with 31, 8, and 11. 1 of 7 from 3, although he still felt the need to stare down Luka up 23 when they got the one step back 3 finally to drop. The one I think he hit on Luka in the series. He looked for that moment every time at like a shot clock or buzzer beater expiring, it felt like. And he finally got one in the clinching game, and he was sure to do it. There's just a lot with Tatum that I don't know. It feels very staged and performative. After the game, he does the KG, anything is possible, and it's like, I get that that's like an iconic moment, but you can't just mimic and recreate iconic moments and think that people are going to think that you're authentic. You've built your entire career around just trying to be like a Kobe clone or knockoff or whatever. Like, everybody anointing you as like the next Kobe, the next Mamba, and then that kind of shifted to Devin Booker. But like, he's doing the bit all the time before games where he's wearing the same style t-shirt that Kobe wore in his pre-draft workout with the Celtics. And he's doing all of that. And then I swear, I haven't seen it if he did it. I don't care to see it. Him recreating the photo of Kobe with the jacket on, just holding the trophy in the locker room. Maybe it's too on the nose even for Tatum's liking. But I'm just kind of, at some point I'm like, dude, you do whatever you want. You earn the moment, clearly. But at some point I'm like, just be you. Just whatever you feel, whatever feels like you, and that you're not just cosplaying these guys and doing your best imitation of Kobe or of KG or whatever. I did see something saying that it was the anniversary of the 2008 Celtics team winning that they clinched on, so this day will be extra special for that fan base, which, okay, sure, I guess. It did take them 16 years to get the next title. We're still waiting. We're at 13, so we're not much further behind in terms of the wait. But your finals MVP ends up being Jaylen Brown, and I think that's the right call. Tatum before the game yesterday or earlier in the day saying like, oh, no, I'm not going to be upset if I don't get it, because like Kobe didn't win finals MVP every time. Kobe played with Shaq. He was never going to be finals MVP until Shaq was gone, and it was Gasol next to him. He's like, Steph just got his first one. Steph wasn't the best player on any of those finals teams. Like, overall he was, but in those finals themselves he wasn't. I mean, hell, Andre Iguodala in the first time around was your finals MVP. Like, that's crazy to me still to think about. But it's just wild. And then, of course, he has KD for those two. It's wild to think about that mindset, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter. But also, who do you think is going to actually put you up for the award, other than Boston media that maybe just is more loyal to you than to Jaylen Brown? Because I think Jaylen Brown is only the now second next to Hakeem in terms of Muslim finals MVPs. If I recall, I saw that somewhere. And yeah, Jaylen Brown, 21, 8, and 6, flirting with a triple-double himself as well. And Holiday, 15 and 11, like 9 and 9 out of Horford, 14 and 8 there. Hauser gave him 8 and 4 off the bench. Porzingis got 16 minutes. Dallas's only real adjustment I saw was they attacked the shit out of Porzingis in pick and rolls and just brutalized him. Basically played him out of the game. He still got 5 points, but he had nowhere near the impact. Part of that was just his health, but Dallas, I liked that they were attacking him and being aggressive. But when Boston went small, Dallas got a little bit of leeway, finally getting their alley-oop game going a little bit. But they just couldn't get it going, because even though their role players were hanging tight, hitting shots, you had, again, Josh Green, you had moments from Derek Jones Jr. PJ Washington didn't have a great game overall. He was 2 of 7 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, ended up with 4, 6, and 3. But you had these guys coming up big for them, and doing some things. But what really stood out to me, Dante Exum, 9 minutes, had 4 points as well, made his one field goal attempt, which was a 3. You had these moments from these guys, but Dallas couldn't build on it because they couldn't get Luka or Kyrie going. Luka goes 12 of 25 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. I think he missed his first 7, or his first 6 at least. And it was, I read something that it was like overall he had missed his last 18 threes in the playoffs he had attempted. And I was just like, oh, bro, I know you're tired as shit. I know you're beat up to holy hell, but you cannot keep settling for threes. Like, the reason that game 4 was the blowout in Dallas's favor that it was is because Luka was just relentless going at the basket. And eventually he was forcing a gravity that was opening up some space for those outside shooters. And they just didn't get back to it. It's a somewhat disappointing thing because after dominating in games 3 and 4, again, all the more reason why it's disappointing not to get that game 3, Derek Lively crashed back to earth a little bit if you just look at the stat sheet. 24 minutes, 2 points, 4 boards, 1 of 2 from the field, and a block. He was a -6 overall. On one hand, I do look at it and say, in games 1 and 2, Porzingis was giving him the business. Porzingis was just torching him, and it was like, ooh, okay, that's a little surprising. But I know Porzingis was hurt and not quite moving as confidently as he was in games 1 and 2 before the injury. But I did have the feeling watching that, like, Derek Lively stuck with KP, never let KP get by him on the drive again, and was much better. So his adjustment and how quickly he processed, like, okay, here's what he's doing, here's how he's beating me, now I'm going to take it away, was huge. But after back-to-back double-doubles, the first rookie to have back-to-back double-doubles in the finals since in like 44 years, I think I read, like some crazy thing like Magic or something. Not the last one to have a double-double, but back-to-back double-doubles, I think is what it was. Incredible. So after all of that, for him to have 2 and 4 and play 25 minutes is just like, damn. You had Gafford giving you 6 and 3 in just 11 minutes, 3 of 5 from the field. He also was a -7. So there was just really nothing going for Dallas. Josh Green was one of the few bright spots. I did have fears that Tim Hardaway Jr. was going to get a lot of minutes. He played 9. He took 1 shot attempt, and Al Horford came down and, or rather, stuck his foot out. I don't think it was necessarily intentional. I don't get that feeling from Al Horford as a player. But Hardaway came down on his ankle just like he did in the Thunder series when he got hurt and then missed some time. Was it it was the Clippers series, that first series, and then he missed some time before coming back for the Thunder series. I digress. And Hardaway, we never even got the attempt to see if Hardaway was going to try and be a burner. A lot of those minutes came in the second half. He came in, immediately tried to get his shot, landed on Horford's foot, and that was about it. And we only got 3 minutes out of Jaden Hardy, which I don't understand. Like, if you're not going to go to Hardaway, and I'm not saying that's the way to go, but if you're not going to go to Hardaway, I feel like in this game, especially once you fell behind by like 22 or whatever it was, you were going to have to lean on one of them. You were going to have one of those guys. And neither of them got a lot of minutes. So that was a little surprising to me. I feel like maybe Kidd looked at it from the standpoint of, hey, in game 3, I overreacted to the struggling offense of games 1 and 2, and I played Hardaway a bunch of minutes, and we got burned bad. Maybe this time he tried to stick to his guns and stay with the more defensive, well-rounded lineup. But it didn't go anywhere. So in the end, Dallas falls in this game. They made a couple little attempts in the second half, but I really had the feeling with the way the first half closed, like they're at their limit. They're gassed. They're not going to be able to do it. Luka and Kai aren't able to hit anything right now. This is just going nowhere. So it's a bittersweet ending to this, but this was a sensational run, man. Like, it was exciting a couple years ago getting to watch them run to the West Finals, but you knew that was lightning in a bottle. You knew that wasn't something they could replicate. And then by the time free agency hit and you lost Brunson, you damn sure knew you weren't going to replicate that. So this one, I would say if there's a silver lining here, it's that I do still really like the roster construction. There's work to be done, no mistake about it. Nico's got to make some adjustments here. They clearly need a third consistent scorer because Hardaway as your third guy, it's just not it. Certainly not reliable. Certainly not the kind of thing you can do. There's a reason he had like one game, maybe I guess you could say two, even though the other one was garbage time, in this entire playoff run that went to Game 5 of the NBA Finals. That is not your third man. I don't care. I don't care. So you got to work. You got to find some stuff. They have some weaknesses on this roster that still need to be addressed. But the core, I feel like, is strong. There's good continuity, composition, and all that. You got some of these guys for some extended time. PJ and Gafford are both multi-year deals that are still here. And you got to figure out how to move Hardaway. You got to figure out how to move Dwight Powell. Dude, if you're going to have Markieff Morris, who already proved himself more valuable as like a locker room leader, then you move on from Dwight. You do. There's no reason you signed him to a new deal like last year or the year before that, whatever it was, just to be a locker room leader, and he's not even the one that's like actually motivating guys. That Markieff Morris is the one that got them to turn it around when they were struggling earlier in the year, and then got them to turn around again when they had some adversity in the playoffs. That speaks to like a locker room leader. Dwight Powell's not that guy. I don't care if he's likable. I don't care if he's loyal. I don't care if he's well liked. I mean, like you can't build a roster, a championship contending roster, if you're having to waste $10 million a year or whatever it is on Dwight Powell. I don't even know what his current salary is at this point, but you just can't. You got to move on from him and Hardaway. I still think you need to keep Derrick Jones Jr. I know he has his certain limitations with his shooting, but I think what he brought was too invaluable, too intangible to this thing. And taking him off of this roster and just saying, well, we still have our guy with PJ. Dude, it was a two-headed monster, just like it was a couple years before that with Reggie and Dodo. You had a two-headed monster, except this two-headed monster was better than those two. Still had certain limitations, for sure. You still got to find a guy that can fill that role, but like, don't get it twisted. Like this is a better piece. You need to figure out a way to keep Derrick Jones Jr. So the only way you're able to do that is if you're able to move on, I think, from Hardaway somehow and Dwight Powell, free up some cap, and then we'll see. But you got some things you got to do. You need two-way guys. We can't just go with this heliocentric thing. You got to have your two-way guys that can really do it, and not just be guys who are like, hey, they're very good on the defensive end, and they can bring you a little bit on offense too. No. We need consistency. We need our own guy that can be a consistent two-way player. I'm not saying like, oh, go find your Derek White, because I know that's impractical to say, but you need some guy that fits that mold, who can be the hustle guy like a Josh Green, and maybe Josh Green becomes that guy. Maybe this was a real confidence boost for him that in Game 5 he had 14 points and 4 threes, including 3 of them when it was still very much a game. Maybe. I don't know. I think he knocked down his first 3. But that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm thinking they need. And I don't think Josh Green does some nice intangible things. He's on a new deal, so obviously he's got some time here. But I think you still got to find whoever that guy is. Some interesting notes here for your entirety of the playoffs. Your leader in points, Luka Doncic, followed by Kyrie Irving. They are the highest scoring backcourt in NBA playoff history. Special. Total assists, Luka Doncic leads with 173. The next closest was Halliburton with 123. Total rebounds, Luka Doncic with 196. Your next closest was Jason Tatum at 176. Total steals, Luka Doncic with 38. Your next closest with Anthony Edwards at 24. If you want to look even interesting, just to see another Maverick on that list somewhere, you had Daniel Gafford leading the playoffs in blocked shots. Here's the exact stat I was looking for. I mentioned it. Luka and Kyrie have combined for 1,079 points. This was during the game still. 1,079 points so far in this postseason. That's the most by a guard duo in a single postseason in NBA history. That's pretty sweet. I'm just looking through some of my extra notes here. Dallas leaned heavy on Maxey in this game, minutes-wise. And again, I understand some of the good things Maxey does. And when he came back into the lineup in the West Finals, I did think that was like, okay, good. You're getting Maxey back into the fold. You will need him in the finals. But I felt like when he's not shooting confidently, he actually kind of shrinks the floor a little bit. And there were a couple possessions at a key point right before Boston went on that late first quarter run, that 9-0 run, where I just kind of had the feeling, I was like, man, I think Maxey might be hurting him a little bit here with his ineffective floor spacing. And then you have that, and it's just like, oh, damn. Okay. Well, that might be it. Let's see. Yeah, so Boston was up 10 after 1 because of the 9-0 run. That was the first thing. Dallas then just kind of hung in there and was staying close by, but it was then when they got bludgeoned by that sprint by the Celtics to close the second quarter that it just fell apart for them. And after Pritchard hit the shot, I didn't really have a whole lot of confidence that they were going to come back. I thought maybe they'll hang tight, and if things start to break, maybe they can get a run going, but I didn't assume that they were like, oh, okay, they're going to dial in and it's going to be like the 22-2 run or 20-2 run that we saw in game 3 that made that real interesting. Because you're down 21 then at the half at 67-46. And overall, the Celtics shot 52% from the field in that. And Derrick Jones Jr. was your leading scorer for Dallas with 10, meaning he had none in the second half. That's pretty wild. I think Panda Hank had a really good way he put it. He said, the gap between Kyrie playing in Boston and Kyrie playing in the other 29 arenas is the gap between Tim Hardaway Jr. and Michael Jordan. That felt accurate because Kyrie, I thought finally he was going to have his bounce back game in Boston. He did not. He was 5 of 16 from the field, 3 of 9 from 3 for 15 points, 3 boards, 9 assists. I do like the 9 assists, but he just had nothing going, man. And it was just evident it was not gonna happen. He stayed after the game on the floor, talked to and not congratulated, I guess, tried to talk up every Maverick player coming off the floor, tell them kind of keep their chin up. And then he shook every Celtics player and coach's hand. I think that's just him trying to be a stand-up guy. But the Celtic fans seeing him doing that and then booing was just like, you just won the effing championship. Like, I understand you're like, oh, it's not like all's forgiven. But at the very least, it's not like he's like storming off without a word. Like, he's showing the mature thing. You're just the one who's like, you already got what you wanted. Why are you still being petty? You're the one that's like, they're going into the streets, having won a title, still chanting F Kyrie. It's like, at some point, you got to get over this, man. Like, you got to get over this. I don't understand it, because like the problem wasn't even that, like, oh, you thought the problem was that Kyrie wanted to be here and then he didn't want to be here anymore. You're kind of psycho as a fan base, like very passionate. I understand that, very passionate, but like the fit wasn't there. The agreement with ownership and the culture and everything wasn't quite there. And then he just like you can't blame a player for taking his career into his own hands. And again, it worked out for you. Let it go. Let it go. KP, KP of recent former Mavericks, I respect his time here for the most part because he always was a stand-up guy and took ownership of things. I felt like he gave very insightful answers that were appreciated. But when he afterwards talked about how like he basically quit at the end in the playoffs and just stood in the corner of that final Clipper series he was here for, 2021, that's when I was like, oh, you quit on your team and you're saying this like on a podcast. Okay, well, I guess screw you then. I mean, whatever. Again, you got your title. Congrats. You had to play 2 full games basically out of a series and you get a title for that. Hey, you had game 1. Game 1, you were sensational. I can't take that from you. But Boston didn't need KP to win this series. And that's the thing. They did not need KP to win the series. So to say that like, oh, well, see, KP was right and Luka was right. No, man, Luka is such a huge reason they were there. Cannot say that about KP. They literally made their entire run basically without him, not to mention a myriad of other things breaking in their favor. And then when it came down to that, say it with me now, war of attrition, Dallas was the one dragging a leg behind them, and Boston was just a better built team anyway. They had the experience, they had the talent, they had the fresh legs in their favor. Everything was built for Boston to do this, and they did it. They did their job. So, kudos to them. I can't take anything away from those players. The worst thing I can say about Tatum is that he's not Luka, and he wishes he was Kobe. He wants to role play being Kobe. I mean, whatever. Do your thing. You got a title. No one can take that from you. So It is what it is. I still think the Finals MVP was correct in going to Jaylen Brown. I still think he's the best overall player they got. And it's wild that they, to their credit, Boston as a franchise made it work with the two of them together. The only one that they couldn't work it in with that combination was Marcus Smart, Flower Mound's own. But, whatever. It is what it is. Let's see here. Looking through any additional notes that I want to talk about. Josh Green was leading the Mavericks in scoring with 5 minutes and 30 seconds left in the third quarter. That's oof. Yeah, Luka had missed 17 straight threes. Nick Angstad points out, before he finally hit one in this game, Nick Angstad points out that this was the best three-point shooting season of his career, 38.2% on 10.6 per game. And he had a few good shooting games in the playoffs from three, but overall, he was not a good three-point shooter percentage-wise in this postseason. Given everything he was dealing with and the fact that he lives and dies on step-back threes, yeah. Yes, Frank, I'm live. I see the conversation going. I'm just hitting my notes before I jump into the comments here. Boston, Kyrie shooting in Boston this season, 27-76. He was 27 of 76 for 35.5%. Game 5, he was Okay, he worked backwards. Game 5, he was 5 of 16. Game 2, he was 7 of 18. Game 1, he was 6 of 19. And all the way back on March 1st, he was 9 of 23. Drew Holiday and, others, Boston's defense as a whole, but Drew Holiday, man, he might be the best defender in the league. He really might. It's amazing he's never even been in serious contention for Defensive Player of the Year, because I really credit him a ton with Kyrie's struggles in this series, and that was it. It was the Mavericks have good role players, but not anyone that can pick up the baton and be the second or third guy, even just for a night, most of the time. I know PJ had a couple games against the Thunder where he kind of did that. And when Kai isn't there as the extra superstar and it goes all back onto Luka's shoulders against what he's having to deal with, I think you were I think you were set on the path for this to happen. Luka had 30 and 10 in his finals debut. He had a triple-double in game 4. Game 3, he had 29 points. I don't remember exactly his stat line in game 2. But he was doing that, and it just wore down to the point where it was if he doesn't get the breakthrough step in of Kai going off for 30, even just for a single game, they're not going to have the firepower that they need. So that's what it kind of boiled down to, was they just didn't have enough support to get it where they needed it. Al Horford had the second longest streak, or second most playoff games ever played, only trailing Karl Malone without a title. So, again, I'm happy for Al Horford. Of Boston's guys, I think he's one of the few that I feel is kind of likable. So, yeah. Interesting how that kind of worked out. Glad to see him get that, although anything he was doing in this game, I was just F you, Al. I can't deal with you right now. But any other circumstance where he wasn't facing the Mavericks, I usually found myself kind of going all right, good job, Al Horford. Yeah, nice. Anything else I want to touch on here before I wrap this up? Not a long stream today. Just kind of, going over what we see. We got a little bit of downtime, then we got free agency. We got a draft that'll be coming up, so definitely some things to consider here for the Mavericks as we try to assess what comes next. Yeah, Kevin Gray Jr. points out the Mavericks made an incredible run to the finals, finishing the regular season 24-9 over their last stretch of games. They beat the Clippers, the number 1 seeded Thunder, and the Timberwolves. Luka averaged a historic 34-9-9 season, was third in MVP voting, and Kyrie averaged 25-5-5. It's a bitter final note for them, the way it ends. But all things considered, I think they gave you everything they could. They showed promise for the future and reason to be really optimistic. I stand by my assertion that Derek Lively is Tyson Chandler 2.0. I was a little surprised Dallas didn't ever have him try a three in this game to stretch the floor, because that was a big thing in Game 4 when Dallas took the lead and then held it the rest of the way. But even still, I think he's going to be Tyson Chandler with a corner three. And there was a report yesterday, even Maverick insiders and like not just media, but people within the organization are saying like it's coming. As soon as next year, you're going to see him getting a couple of those looks per game, because the confidence is there, the ability and the form and everything is there. This is going to be something that he works into his game, and just another way that Dallas is going to be more dynamic and more lethal. That was what was so hard. It was when Boston was pulling away, that 5-out offense, again, their small ball kind of thing, 5-out offense. It's so brutally difficult to guard when you have 5 guys that can legitimately put the ball on the floor, get to the basket, and can shoot threes. So many teams want that. So few have it. The Thunder are a good example of a team that has it, but what the Thunder lack is the ability to then bang bodies inside and be physical inside. They can be physical at the point of attack on the perimeter, but not so much when it's down under the basket, which is how Dallas was able to feast with Derek Lively, and how Gafford, despite not having a good plus-minus, could still make impactful plays at times. That's the difference. Boston could do both. OKC could only do one part of that, one part of the equation. Let's see here. Only 2 players averaged 7+ points per game, 7+ rebounds per game, and 65+% from the field in the 2024 playoffs. Jared Allen in 4 games and Derek Lively in 22 games. That's pretty special. Pretty sweet there. Oh, Landon Thomas has some extra insight on the playoff leader stats I read off earlier. Luka led in points, rebounds, assists, steals, deflections, three-pointers made, double-doubles, and triple-doubles. And Gafford led in blocks. Pretty impressive. Kyrie Irving after the game said he appreciated this season perhaps most of all. He says, quote, "I think I enjoyed this journey more than any other season, just because of the redemption arc and being able to learn as much as I did about myself and my teammates and the organization and the people I'm around." Again, I feel like Kai is continuing to say all the right things, so I do love that. I am happy that's where we would be in the worst situation, right? If after all of this somehow soured the experience, where they were just like, maybe there is a ceiling on this and this isn't going to work. No, him and Luka are legit thick as thieves, and I think that's bodes very well for Dallas's future, at least as it relates to next year and perhaps the year after that, because Kai does have a player option, so we'll have to consider that after next season where we're at. Dalton Trigg adds, from being barely over 500 a few days away before the trade deadline to playing in the NBA Finals 5 months later, what a whirlwind season it was for the Mavericks. The ending will sting, but the pieces are in place for a bright future. I agree. Very, very impactful stuff. Luka said, on the future of the team, I feel great. We did some great moves. We've been together for 5 months. I'm proud of every guy that stepped on the floor, all of the coaches and people behind. We didn't win the finals, but we had a hell of a season, and I'm proud of every one of them. I like it. Yeah, in the end, Boston had more firepower. They had more experience, and their ability to spread the scoring weight and burden was just something Dallas didn't have an answer to. Tip your cap to them. Hope you can be back as soon as next year, but, you never know. You never know with something like this. You're just going to have to play it year by year and see. But the difference is I have every confidence in Nico Harrison, and I don't know that I could have really said that in recent years. Like the previous, I almost said administration, the previous front office for sure. But I think now, with this success, you will have some guys that are going to look around and be like, I could fit here with Dallas. I could do something with Dallas, because you are going to be able to find. I want them to keep Derrick Jones Jr., but you are going to be able to find maybe that type of player you're looking for. I can't give you a name off the top of my head right now. I'm going to have to do some more digging and research to see who's even out there and available. But I think Dallas has shown creativity with their roster management that they haven't shown in years past, in front offices past. And the fact that they can do that and now have this stretch of success and everything they can point to as a reason, like why you could have somebody look at the Mavericks and say, like, this is going to be a relevant team. There's a need still there, and I think I could help contribute to that. I think that's legitimate. That's something that was not the case previously. And now I think you're also going to have the benefit. I always talked about how I felt like Cuban blowing up the championship team without even trying to defend. Guys said around the league for years after that, nobody ever forgot that. So I know Luke. I know he's still involved. Cuban is with basketball operations and everything. He's still effectively in that position, but he's not the governor or owner or whatever of the team anymore. And now you do have a different GM and everything in there. So the people responsible for that are still technically around, but not in as public a way. Like when you had the Western Conference Trophy presentation, you didn't even have Cuban up there. And so perhaps now with this clout, this bragging rights of what they've done, the roster pieces in place where you feel pretty good moving forward, but knowing that the needs that are there can maybe find some really capable suitors, that is something to be relieved about. We'll talk more about it as we do a free agency breakdown later, but that is my time for today. Let me do a quick run through of some of these comments here, just giving shout outs to the people in the house. Christian Doe, first up. Frank, what's good? Eastside, I see you in there. I'm not giving you time of day, though. Cowboy X Factor was good. Yes, this was live, not a premiere. Just trying to see if there's anyone else I haven't already named here. Looks like I'm caught up in terms of the active parties in the chat. So if you guys haven't already, like the video, drop a comment, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect. Stay tuned, hang around. I will be back with more weekly Mavericks content, navigating free agency, navigating the draft, talking about what this team needs to do next and how we try to take the next step to take just a little bit of the sting out of this finals loss. It's been a great year. I have no regrets. But until next time, guys, remember, every legend was